The show YENA KHUBONI is from MAISHA Financial Services. These are the people who are called. They have a calling to come and help us know what to do to create wealth, know how to relate with money. Some of the things that we talk about, whew, yeah, you will hear today. There are some subjects that people never, ever, ever want to discuss. Money is one of them, and for Christians, divorce is the other. So, but sometimes we need to have the difficult discussions on radio. We need to have people who are professionals in attending to this type of issues. These are not issues that you can come speak generally to and say, I think, and say, I think people must not mix their money and all of that because lo and behold, God forbid you get divorced. No. That's why I went and got myself Miss YENA KHUBONI. YENA, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, Given. Good evening to the listeners. Yes, today is a tough topic. The two most controversial topics together.
That's why today I want to allow you to speak, YENA. If we go over time today, I will just let's allow it to run its course, because where there are two people and there's money, it doesn't matter the type of relationship they have. Sometimes controversies and troubles and conflicts will come up. And unfortunately, the enemy is fighting the church so much that divorce is right inside the church. So I want to just let you, talk to us. What do we do in the instances of money and divorce? I know that we are closing off the month of love, but all's fair in love and war. Let me let you do your thing. Let me let you speak to the people.
Yes, Given, we have such a wonderful month of love, discussing everything, relationships and money. And unfortunately, despite our best intentions, sometimes forever after doesn't materialize. And we find ourselves faced with the difficult decision to untie the knot. So today we're going to just delve into the realm of financial precautions, decisions, strategies for navigating and managing finances during your divorce. We know that finance is the top two leading causes for arguments in general, like you said, in any relationships. But moreover, it's also the leading cause for divorces, which is why I always say it is crucial. This month I've been emphasizing it is crucial that if you are in a love relationship, romantic relationship, make sure you tender to your money matters. More importantly, before we go forward, Given, I just want to send some sympathy. I know this is a very sensitive topic, and it's a very hard one because it's not just touches finances, but it touches your psychology, your spirituality, and your emotions as well. And it's when all of these things, they happen together and all in huge intensity. So when you divorce, all of them come all at once at a very high intensity. So I just want to give the listeners, if there's anyone who's going through a divorce or just gone out of a divorce or to finalize, Psalm 143 says he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. So trust. And the other thing, I know we always say this, and it probably sounds cliche, especially because our community are people who actually believe in God. But if there's anything I can say to the listeners, one thing that you can never do alone and without God, that's divorce. If you cannot do divorce alone, you will die. Whether it's literally dying or dying figuratively, if you do it without God, you will surely die. So this is the time that you need to pray like you've never before, and you make sure that your relationship with God is on point. I want to remind the listeners, whilst we're on that, on Proverbs 3:5-6, that's trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Amen. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. You need this. Divorce, no matter how intellectual, right now I'm gonna go through the practical parts and the finances, and even if your intellect and your practicality is on point, it is not enough. True. When you go to, you need Jesus. So make sure that making smart financial, whilst you are making financial choices that are smart during your divorce, but involve God in every single step. Now, also another disclaimer given today, because I know we don't have all the time in the world, we usually have workshops for this because it's a very huge topic.
Mm.
I'm going to be slightly biased, and if
Okay.
you know me, you know me by now. The listeners know what's close to my heart are youth, children, and women. And unfortunately, in divorces, 95% of the time, divorces affect those the most:
Mm.
women, children, and the youth. Those are
Very
the
true.
most people.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are affected the most during divorces. So some of my stuff will be more favoring to those parties, but it's not to say that it doesn't affect men and that men can't take the advice and the guidance that I'm giving tonight. And
Mm.
also, this is just the guidance, it's not advice. Every single situation is delicate and is different,
All
especially
right.
because there's different regimes, there's different ways that we get married, and there's different assets. But
Mm.
when you divorce, whether you're male, female, or whatever, young, old, think financially, not emotionally. If there's one thing I want the listeners to take from today and tonight, given,
Yes.
think financially, not emotionally. It's crucial to make sound, disappointed, informed, and regret-free decisions during this pivotal time. Emotions, I know, run high, but it is imperative to not let them dictate your financial choices. Seek advice from the lawyers and the financial advisors that you have who are passionate, and make sure you find people that are passionate about what they do and love what they do and have their best interest and have your best interest at heart. So,
Mm.
and I know during the divorce, it seems like this is just too much work. Now I have lawyers. Now I need a financial advisor. Now I need a wealth strategist. And it seems like it's a lot of work at that time, because there's also emotions. You're crying yourself to sleep, and if there's kids involved, the kids are asking what's happening with daddy, what's happening with mommy, why is mommy not here, and all those things.
Mm.
But the one thing that you can never get a second chance on doing is a divorce. You don't get a divorce do over.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can get married and divorced again the second time, but you won't get a do over on that particular divorce. So prioritize decisions that serve you and your best interest and those of your children.
Mm.
So
Mm.
today we're gonna just make sure that I'm gonna run to three because of time. Just what I think is the top 6 points that we need to look at from a practical point of view. Wisdom that we know, we've always said this. The Bible says we must walk in counsel of the wise, so that we
Yes.
may be wise as well.
Mm.
So we'll just look at those, and then we'll take questions through the chats, and then we'll answer them directly as on our shows going
Yeah.
forward. So now, given as we have said, even the perfect couples in Hollywood make divorce. So there's sometimes we do the best, but and no one plans for divorce, but sometimes it happens. And unfortunately, most people deciding to divorce don't have the security and the millions in the bank to fall back on, like those people, those Hollywood stars or multi-billionaires.
Mm. Mm.
However,
Mm.
if you want to protect your financial well-being, it's important that you act and think financially,
Yeah.
not emotionally, through the divorce process. While you may be emotionally drained when during the throes of the divorce process, it is worth focusing on the goal to act in your and your family's best interest
Yeah.
to make sure that you achieve the best possible outcome. Sorry, to make sure that you achieve the best possible outcome, you need to, so you find the financial experts, you find the legal experts, divorce legal experts, make sure
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
divorce specific, as as impressively as possible. So remember that you won't have a divorce, like I said, you won't have a divorce do over.
Mm.
You could be stuck with the negative consequences of your poor make decisions for life if
Yeah.
you don't do these things
Mm.
practically.
Mm. Mm.
So try put your emotions aside, and I'm not trying to be insensitive, but try for that moment to be sober and have a council of people who can be with you and walk this journey that you trust, and make sure you put your feelings aside and focus on securing your financial future without rushing the process.
Yeah.
It is it is natural to form an attachment to your joint possessions. After all, you spent time collecting these assets together as a couple, and many of the assets have an emotional and a financial investment history in it. So when you split them, splitting your possession it's like a tangible evidence of your emotional split and the fraught with the emotion. So you will feel emotions. It's there, it's real, and it will be there, and you have the rights to feel those emotions. However, despite the emotions, there are strong financial reasons to remain pragmatic. Please, please, please make sure that you remain pragmatic when you are negotiating your divorce. And this is especially for the females. And I know it's it seems unfair because we generally are emotional beings without having to go through divorces and such, but we need to make sure that you stay as pragmatic as possible. Get accountability partners if you know that you can't. And generally speaking, people in the process of in the process of divorce don't feel overly charitable towards their soon to be spouses. And that's the main concern, and that's why you need to make sure that you are sober minded when you make your decisions, and you make sure that you focus on what you deserve during that settlements. It is essential for couples to not only focus on who gets what and how the future income will be divided, but also take debts and loans into considerations. So that's one of the things that couples don't look into. Make sure that during this time, yes, there's assets that people rush into assets, but to make sure that you also take into account the debts and loans that you've gotten yourselves into during the course of your marriage. So to reduce the toll of divorce, given, like I said, I'll go through six tips that I usually give couples on a high level just to avoid falling into the common pitfalls. The one point is to make sure you gather copies of all documents relating to your legal and financial lives.
All right.
And this is something that we've discussed during the past 2 weeks when we're discussing money and marriages. So if you're doing it as a habit, while things are nice and bliss, when this happens, because usually divorces are unforeseen and it takes us by surprise sometimes. So if you've been doing habits of this, then this comes it becomes easy and good, and it's better for you because you're not doing this under pressure or under a lot of emotions. So not only does this ease the legal proceedings when all the documents, it also means that your spouse won't be able to hide things. And like I said, we spoke about this before, that when we're speaking about insurances, that you may vouch for your partner and you say, your partner loves kids, or your mom or your siblings, but when you die and there's money is involved, people and characters and integrities gets questioned, and they may not act in the way that you thought they would. Hence the wills. Similarly, you may marry your partner and your spouse, and you think you know them and you know their integrity and their character, but comes divorce, they act in a totally different way that you never expected. So make sure that you have these things in place. So most of the time the males have this in place, and they have all these documents. They have the financial advisors who keep these documents for them. Most of the time females don't even, and it's usually the females that are homeless and don't have formal employment, that actually, and they depend on the husbands. That usually, even if you are that and that type of life, make sure that you question and you ask for copies, and you keep those copies for yourselves as well, whether you're working or not. And even if you are working and you have plans on your own end, but make sure that you also know what it is that you have together. Most couples have a complex financial portfolio given that includes assets like your marital residence, rental or vacation properties, bank accounts, brokerages accounts, retirement and pension plans, stock options, life insurances. And the reason you also need to make sure that as you are married, you ask this question, housewife or not, there's have life insurances with cash value, and that makes a difference when it's time for divorce, because you have access or due part of those portions of that cash value on that insurance. and there's practices and professional practices. So make sure that you know all of this. Even during the, like I said, even during the best of times, it can be extremely difficult to keep track of all of these. I know, especially for females, because you have also all these other stuff that you need of taking care of the home, the house that you need to do. But make sure that you try your best. That especially the ever changing financial components in your marriage, you keep track of them, and so that when you decide to divorce, that task of dividing your joint portfolios is almost like automatically uncomplicated.
Yeah.
And then make it easier. The second thing is to just, which I'm going to rush through because we've done this before, given, is what is your marital agreement? Remember that, then this is something that we discussed on the first week, to say before you get married, you need to discuss these options, and you hopefully would have discussed them, even if you refresh yourself. So when you are married in communal property, all assets before and after the marriage belongs to both the parties equally, as it becomes part of the joint estate of the marital contract.
Yeah.
If you're married out of community of hardship, that means all assets you have before your wedding belong to you and are not included in the marital estate. And after marriage, you have the choice to combine your assets or to continue building separate estates. So those, and if you did continue to build separate estates, then during divorce, then you take those, you go with your separate estates. And if you have a prenuptial agreement, and is without accrual, that basically means that everything you own before the marriage, as well as property and assets you accumulated during the marriage, remains yours.
All right.
Yeah, and then prenuptial agreements with accrual means that everything you own before the marriage is and remains yours. However, what you and your spouse gather as assets and property after your wedding is shared equally between the husband and wife. So it is important to note that even if you don't get married, given, and this is something maybe we can deal next week when we look into the difference with the other relationships, that even if you don't get married, but if you live with your partner for a number of years, and South African, there's a new common law. I know previously they didn't recognize it, and they didn't recognize cohabitation, but unfortunately now it does. So if you have been living with someone for more than 6 months in South Africa, there is certain parts of your estate that you will be liable for, even if it's just a breakup. So it's a breakup. You're not married. You've never been married. You've been dated, but you've been living together for 6 months or more. Furthermore, if you die during this separation, you are liable to that person can still have a claim onto your estate, which is why I say, married or not, whether you feel like we have small assets or not, make sure you have your wills. Wills are free to amend. You can literally draw up one this week and call me next week to amend, and the next week and you amend it again. So, but make sure that you are clear. So I just wanted to, I know this is not something that's people like, no, we're not married, but and nothing will happen. But if you've been together and the person can prove that they've been somewhat financially dependent on you and you break up, South African law can put in state place that they have a claim into your estate. Number 3, given, is to make a list of all the joint and separate assets and liabilities. So again, it goes back to point number 1. If you've been doing this religiously during your marriage, during the good times, it's easier that way. Not only does it help you and your partner to get to know each other, understand their values, because once you understand which assets I like, where do I spend money most, you get to understand me as well better as your partner and as your spouse, and you get to know my values indirectly. And I think this also opens up a channel to be able to communicate better, because I know we always say communication is key in marriages, but it's easier said than done. And when you do these practically, it helps that process. So if you have these already, then it helps when it comes to divorces. So if you're married out of community of property, you can transfer your assets. You can just transfer assets you own into your own name and into your own account, and also don't give joint assets without sound legal and financial advice. And this is where, again, our females and the wives actually fail, because then it's emotional attachment. They want to take the asset that they feel attached to, but then when you look further down the line, in fact, as far as financial value, does it make financial sense to have kept that and let him keep whatever other assets? No, maybe not.
Yeah.
So make sure that you have legal and sound legal and financial advice. Don't give up joint assets like, okay, you take the house, I take the car, or I take car X and then you take car B. Make sure that you have someone who goes through everything, because the independent person is not in this, is not affected emotionally, spiritually or mentally like you are,
Oh,
as you are
yes.
going through the divorce. So they'll be able to be objective and look into the different types of all the different angles, and make sure that you will remain, you take the best interest at heart. And the next thing, and this is so important given, and they forget thing, and I know that when divorces happen, whether it's from a vindictive or being spitefulness or just people just wanting money and trying to see the liquid, is the retirement fund.
Oh, yes.
Please,
Yes.
please, please, please make sure that when you divorce, I know that doesn't sound as if like you like how you, it's as if, especially for the wives who don't work, they'll feel like I'm favoring the husbands in this, but it's not. Trust me, in the long run, it's not. Split the retirement income, not the fund.
Okay.
Let me say that again. Split the retirement
Income
income,
and
not the
not
fund.
the fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's the retirement income, there's the retirement fund. I
Yeah.
know this is jargon in the industry and people don't know this, which is again why you need to make sure you keep that wise counsel. Make sure. So many wives, especially, rely on their husband's retirement funds when it comes to divorce, and because they take time off to take care of the kids, and sometimes I was working, then when we had kids I decided to stay at home after maternity leave, I don't, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. And that's usually a mutual agreement, mutually agreed, and husband can take care of all of us. And I find that I'm financially dependent. And when divorce comes, most people think, oh, he's been working, there's definitely a retirement fund, which is good, and probably has got many monies. But make sure it is your best interest to make sure that you don't touch the fund, but you split the retirement income.
Yeah.
And I know it's tempting to insist on the immediate split of that retirement fund. However, part of the tax implications of the early withdrawal will reduce the value of the fund. So it doesn't help any of you. You both lose
Yeah.
at the
True.
end of the day. So this is also so, but then if you don't do that, this is also an opportunity cost. So I think in 2007, the Pension Fund Act of 24 introduced what they called a clean breakup principle. This basically allows retirement funds to deduct an amount or a percentage from the divorce upon divorce from a member's benefits
Oh,
and
yeah.
paid to the non-member spouse. So if you use husband and wife, so this means basically there'll be a percentage from the husband's fund that goes to the wife's fund.
Yeah.
So but then that will be the income, and then the funds, and then from those funds you take it to your own fund, so that even though you are a stay-at-home wife, whether you continue to be a stay-at-home mom going forward after the divorce, but you are now starting your own fund, which
Yeah.
has more value than you having withdrawn it, because when you withdraw it, there's huge tax implications. So the clean breakup principle allows that non-member or the wife to access an agreed or court-ordered share of the member spouse and retirement savings on divorce. And then there's a settlement, and then you settle on a portion of income. So there's also still as an actual cash or monies or lump sum of amount that you will get from that pension fund, but that's the income portion. Hence, I was saying the income portion, then you take and you put cash, and then the fund portion you divide and you start your own fund.
Yeah.
If you go back into employment, at least you're starting from something, and then you can build on that employment on that fund.
Wow. Mouthful, YENA. I thought today let's just deal with this one and let it pass, because it's like ripping the band-aid. It's not an easy subject, but what you're saying is we must be awake to all angles of this unpleasant occurrence of life. Unfortunate. It's not something we want. It's not something we advocate for, but God forbid it does happen, you need to do the right thing. What I like about this segment of the show is that this information that you give is tangible yet rigid information. that you can't do without. It's just simply information you can't do without. You're going to go and make big mistakes that will affect the rest of your life terribly. You're never going to speak to the person that was the love of your life, even after this thing is gone, because you feel like they did you wrong in terms of the settlements and everything, and it affects the children, it affects the extended family, and there are fights and all of these things. We don't want that. If the two people have made a decision, it's their decision. They will live with their decision. But this information that we are getting on this segment says that do things right for both of you. You know, you can never have enough counsel. Go for counsel. Go to MAISHA. Sit down with MAISHA. Do not rush these things. Go to your spiritual counseling, but also go to your financial counseling and look at all the sides. Your lawyers will be there, but they are not finance experts. Let MAISHA help you. Now, where do we find MAISHA to help us? I'm getting in to this one because I want God's people to have information, to not perish because of lack of knowledge. Where do we find MAISHA? How do we assist us?
You find MAISHA Financial Services on all social media platforms. We go by MAISHA Financial Services or MAISHA_FS. You can also email us on admin@MAISHA Financial Services. Our team is always active on our social media platform. So if you do DM us, they will definitely respond. And just to your point, given during this time, you need to make sure you take care of every single aspect.
Yeah.
Your financial, your emotional, like you're saying, this is the time that counseling can never be more than enough.
Wonderful. YENA KHUBONI, thank you very much for coming through. Next week, we talk about the other relationships, the other family. I know this was supposed to be for the love month, but I know we love our extendeds, but there are money relations there too, and we need to cover that too. Whether you're my friend, my brother, my sister, my in-law, if there's money involved, we need to have principles that we live by. I can't wait for next week.
Thank you, Kevin. And then thereafter, we will unpack the budget speech that we heard last week from Parliament.
Oh, wonderful. I would love for that to happen. Yes. Right. We'll be speaking to YENA next week. YENA, may God bless you.
Thank you. God bless to the listeners and have a good evening.
Wonderful stuff. See, I told you. This information is so much. But yeah, we have to talk about these things. We cannot shy away from talking about these type of things. Thank you so much to YENA KHUBONI.
Smag jy na 'n intieme verhouding met Jesus? Is genesing